The focus of our webcast today is what's new with Microsoft's unified interface. We are very excited to have Angelina, our in-house senior consultant, presenting for us today. To give our audience some background, Unified Interface is a new responsive experience for Microsoft Power Apps and Dynamics 365. It is designed to bridge the gap between web and mobile platforms so users can have a consistent experience across all devices. There are, of course, a lot more exciting features that Microsoft released this past April, and Angelina will give you some insights into what those features are. I will now pass it off to Ange, and I hope you enjoy the webcast.
Thank you, Shanella. Welcome, everyone. So today we are talking about Unified Interface. As introduced, I will be your presenter today. My name is Angelina Jacobs. I'm one of the consultants at CRM Dynamics located in Mississauga, Ontario. As always, feel free to take down my contact details and shoot me an email or connect on LinkedIn. I do try to respond as quickly as possible, but please understand I'm not always able to, or I'll forward you off to the right party that can assist you. So what are we going over today? Well, I'm going to talk about what Unified Interface is and some of the highlights I like to share that are available within it. This also means I'll jump into a demo and show what those pieces look like. We'll see the change in navigation, business process enhancements, we'll have a look at the activity timeline, and see what reference panels are. I will admit I get pretty excited about them, so I hope you will be too. What exactly is Unified Interface? Well, it's a new user experience, and of course an interface that came with the release of Dynamics 365 for customer engagement apps, version 9 and up. It uses responsive web design principles so that regardless of what device you're on, the screen size or orientation of it, you have a much better viewing and interaction experience with your CRM and the related apps. Most of the core functionalities of sales and customer service have moved to Unified Interface Client. Having said that though, here's my small disclaimer that not everything is available on Unified Interface just yet, but Microsoft will be getting there, and in time they will start to deprecate the classic web versions as they move into everything being on Unified Interface. Okay, so enough of me referencing the boring slides. I'm going to jump into the new Unified Interface. Okay, so what you see up on your screen now, I'm in Dynamics 365 and the new Unified Interface. Before I get into the interface itself, for those that are on the newer versions of Dynamics 365, this should look somewhat familiar, as well as the navigation up here. So in terms of terminology now, where it used to just be Dynamics CRM, then it became Dynamics 365, and then now you have like your sales, your customer service, field service modules, we're also referring to these as apps. So in terms of what you refer to the system as, it's an app now. So you can have a sales app, your service app, and you can have custom apps. So that's the other nice piece, is that you can create your own apps, and these can be per department. You know, you can have a sales app, you can have a service app, you can have a management app even. And within that configuration of each app, you put what those teams can see and access within your CRM system. So you'll see here I have quite a list of apps available to me. I had created my own Marvell app here. So loading into this, and you can see at the top navigation bar here, it has the name of my app. So I'm able to tell which one I'm in at that time. And if I'm given access to multiple apps, I'll have them in that drop-down list available to me. But you can also restrict by security roles who has access to what apps. So more often than not, you know, your sales team only has the one sales app they'll get, whereas management might be able to go into different apps like service, sales, their own. So a few key things you'll notice is the navigation is different. So most people are used to the navigation being at this top bar here, where you'd have your drop downs, you'd go into your sales modules, and then you'd go into accounts, or you'd go into sales leads, or you go into service modules and cases. Navigation here is now on the left pane, and it's quite pared down because I'm able to set what I want available in this navigation pane. So I have my home page, so it's very similar to how you would click the home page icon up here and it'd bring you to that home page, whether it was a dashboard or your accounts view, etc. I have my recent records, so any records or view I've recently gone to, whereas that used to be in the top navigation bar where these icons were. So they've just moved over here. And then any of the ones that I've pinned from my recent views. So you can see here I've pinned my active contacts, so it's very easy for me to get to that at any time. Similar to the sub-modules within your sales and service, I've labeled clients, sales, activities, and then put the specific entities within here. So it's the same in terms of just clicking on whichever entity you want to go into. It's just the navigation pane is going to be over here and is much cleaner. So that's very nice for the user experience. Another piece to show with the unified interface and how it adapts to both the screen size and device you're on. If I go and change my browser size, so let's say I take this and I squish it down here, notice how my view changes. So I'm no longer stuck with having to always use the scroll bar to go left and right. Depending on my screen size, it adapts to that. So that's pretty neat, just in terms of having your information a little more easily visible for you. Expand that again, and boom, it does it automatically and goes back to my main view. I'm going to go into the leads. For those in sales, leads should be very familiar to you, as well as the business process flow. So this is that process flow where you have the stages at the top of the form here. I'm just going to let that load. Okay, so you'll notice the process bar takes up quite a lot less space than it used to in the classic web version. So you can easily see the stages, you can see the active one here, and then I can either click this and it gives me whatever fields I have to be filling out in this stage, as well as gives me that next stage button so I can move to the next stage. So it's very easy to have better screen real estate. What's also nice here is a docking feature. So instead of me always having to click this so I have the stage field drop down, this little button here docks the stage and the fields into my right panel. So I can continue to work on the form up front here, but still have the stage fields available to me here, and I can go next and proceed that way. So that's very cool. And then when I don't need that anymore, I can just exit and I'm back to the full form page here. You'll notice here in the center, and this will come out of the box and is available in most entities. So your leads, opportunities, accounts, contacts. Very similar to your activity panel where it has the notes and the activities. So this timeline can kind of put all of that together. This can be set in the backend by an administrator, system customizer, which displays first. You'll notice here, notes is the main piece that displays initially, but I can also add activities from here as well. So if I wanted to add a note, I could say, it gave my note of check with Ivan. He sent documents. And it's just a note that'll be attached to this lead, saves, and puts it into this timeline. I do also have other options here to filter and refresh the timeline. So what's nice with the filtering piece here, once this loads up, I'm able to filter by the record type within this timeline. So I have all, which is notes and activities. The posts are any activity that has happened and is tracked on this record. So usually the first post is someone created the lead, and then activities as well. So it's just a very nice piece that you can filter by and pare down into whether you want to look at notes or activities. If I exit out of this, like any other subgrid you might be used to, the plus button gives you all the other options. So here's where I can also add other activities. So it's very similar to the classic web version in your activity panel. So I can add an appointment, email, phone call, task, and any other custom activities you might have in here. So I could add a task here. This takes me into my task form that's set up. These might differ depending on what's been configured for you in your environment. And I can just say follow up and put tomorrow. Maybe not at 12 a.m. Let's do a little later in the day, do 12:30 p.m. I can save and close. And it brings me back into the lead, and I should see that task now on the timeline here, right here. So it just looks a bit different, has a bit more functionality added to it. You'll see here it's now giving me what I've missed. So there's new activities and a new note that I added today. So it's a nice way, especially if you share records between different team members, they can see what's been happening on a certain record, whether it's a sales team that works on the same opportunity or an account or contact, it'll be very similar. I'm going to go into some accounts now, just some sample ones in here. Again, you'll notice the timeline, very similar to what we just saw in the leads. Hopefully you've noticed, since I've opened up a few different records, is the tabs here at the top. So in the classic web version, your tabs used to run down the form here and you'd have to scroll. Or you would jump to the different tabs up here within the classic web version, so it would jump to the tab that you have configured in the back end. Now though, the tabs are like this, so I can easily jump right from the top of the form between different tabs. It's a much better user experience, much better navigation, because if you have forms that maybe have, let's say 5 tabs, that can be a lot of scrolling down and scrolling down and scrolling down and then having to scroll back up to get to the top of the page again. So it's just very nice navigation. I did click into reference panels. This is what I wanted to show you. It's a really neat addition, available only in the unified interface, so it's not on the web client. It's very similar to how you would put a subgrid onto a form, but this allows you to put multiple at the same time. So you'll see here I have a view of different records, but then on the right here I have a few different icons. So here I have tasks, these are contacts, and this one's opportunity. So one, very neat to just be able to tab between the few subgrids I've added on here. In addition to that though, let's say I wanted to see what this task was. Oops, sorry, I double clicked, I opened it twice. So here I have a quick snapshot. And again, these are very similar to your quick view forms, so you can configure these in the back end. So I have my follow-up task. I can see what it was, when the due date was, if there was a different priority, as well as the status, so I had actually completed this. But let's say I also want to see what contacts are at this company. I've got Susan, Renee here. I now have Susan's contact details up. Very basic, I know she's the owner. Here's the business phone number. If she had a mobile, it would be here. I still have that follow-up task available to me as well, and I can jump between the 2 tabs. Going further, I want to see the opportunity that's tied to this. So I have a potential sale opportunity here. I'm going to open this up. And again, take note, I now have an opportunity record open, a contact record, and an activity task record open, all within the one account record. I can navigate away within the same record, check some details on here, go back to my reference panel, and I'm still able to skip between those records. I currently have the reference panel as its own tab here, but when I show you how to configure this, we're going to put it into an existing tab in an existing section. So it doesn't just have to be on its own tab here, it can reside within with other sections on a form. But pretty neat. I can, close what I need to, and then I can still go back and navigate to other records. If I have any of those records open within the reference panel and then I navigate away from this record, so let's say I'm done with this company and I want to go to the next account, here's another feature that's added in with Unified Interface. I'm going up to the top left here, there's a little arrow. This pops out. I've now got that active accounts list and I can go right from here. So I go AdventureWorks, I'm now into my next account. Because I have navigated away from the one I was just working on, if I went back, my reference panel will have cleared. So that's just one thing to keep in mind is if you do navigate completely away from the record, your reference panel tabs won't stay open. It's only if you're within the same record. Or sorry, it's only if you stay within the same record. So that's pretty neat. So the common question will be, how do we add in reference panels? So one of the things you'll notice for anyone who does system customization, we're going to be going back into the classic web customization section right from here. So I'm in my custom app. I'm going to go up to the gearbox up here into settings. This is where you could do your personal settings. So things like what your home page is, how many records you see per page, your very standard stuff, very similar to the web version. But I'm going to go to advanced settings. Notice this pops open another tab. So this section for anyone who does system customization should look pretty familiar. I'm now back into my classic web version. So you'll see when I click settings, I've got that standard drop-down menu that most of you are used to. I'm going to go into my customizations. You can also go into your own solutions. So depending on where you're supposed to be doing those types of edits, that's up to the organization. Usually you're not working in the default solution. You'd have your own solution for a bunch of changes. I'm just going to jump right into here just so I can get into a solution right away and show you how we add in those reference panels. While this loads, I will mention that not everything is available in Unified Interface just yet. So I know I had kind of given that disclaimer at the beginning. Most of the sales and customer service functionality has been in there, most of the entities as well. Some of them will be read-only, I believe, and I'll have to double check on that list because it does change with every release. Same with what other entities are available. So Dynamics 365 does have a lot of modules, a lot of functionality, so not everything is quite on Unified Interface yet. We can send that out with the recording after this webinar, just to give you a good idea of where to look for what's new, what's coming, and then what's being deprecated. Okay, so you should have, or sorry, you should see, whoops, you should see my default solution up here. Anyone who's done system customization should be very familiar with this. It is using the classic web version, so it's kind of that hybrid experience right now. And I'm going to go into my entities. I'm going to go into the contact one. I'm going to open up one of the forms. Got a lot of main forms, but I'm using this one as our main one. Okay. So your standard form editing page here, I've got different sections, different tabs. So you'll notice I have a summary tab, we've got a LinkedIn member profile, details tab, and you can have other tabs. This shows up very similar to this in the classic web version where I'm scrolling up and down. But these tabs set up like this will display in Unified Interface as we had just previously seen, where it's tabbing across the top and remains at the top as you scroll down the page. So it's very easy to switch between tabs now with Unified Interface. Okay, so to add those reference panels. So instead of adding a bunch of subgrids, as you can see here on the right, I have recent cases, and recent opportunities. These are just standard subgrids I've added into a standard section. To add in a reference panel, you insert it like a section, but it's now going to be a specific option available to you. So I've gone into the Insert tab here. I'm going to go into Section, and I now have Reference Panel. I can insert that. Here's my reference panel section. I'm going to bring that over here just because this is a bit wider for me. Now, one of the easiest ways to tell if a section is a reference panel one, I'm going to double click to get into the properties. Notice I'm missing quite a few display options here in this tab, and in the name I have ref_pan. So that's your key indicator that this is a reference panel section. You can only have or only add one reference panel per form. So I can't have multiple reference panels on this same form, only one. So now that I have that reference panel section, I can add the subgrids just as I would normally. So I have it selected. I'm going to go to the top subgrid, and then I can pick which entity I want to put in here. So I could do activities if I wanted to. And if you're not familiar with these customizations, we do have other videos that go through, creating forms, creating views, and so forth. I'm just going to quickly go through this. Okay. Oh, I did forget one thing, so I'm glad it reminded me. Because I'm inserting into the reference panel, it's asking for a tab icon. So I'm going to go back in just to show you what it's referencing here. So the tab icons are what display here on the right. There are some available just by default because they're used throughout the system, but you can also upload your own. So let me go back into here. And we're going to add in a tab icon. I'll do a search just to see what's out of the box in here. Now I can go okay and add that. So I've got one subgrid on here. To add a second one, same functionality as before, insert subgrid. I'll pick this entity this time. You could do cases for anyone with customer service. I'll put all cases. Again, I'm just picking the views and the entity here. I do have to pick this tab icon, so let's just see if there's an out-of-the-box case one. We'll try this, and I'm going to give it a quick name. Go OK. Now that I've done that edit, I'm going to save, and then I'm going to publish this form. Always remember, if you make any changes, any customization changes, you do have to publish them before they become available on the user side. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my app here. I'm going to refresh. Either use F5 or the refresh button of your browser. Okay, so I did the edits on the contact form, so I'm going to jump over to contacts. We'll open up Doug here. So I put that reference panel underneath the timeline, and here you see it. I've got my little icon here for activities, another little icon here for cases. Obviously, you want to take into account what view you're showing here, how wide the columns are, how wide this section of the tab is. So, maybe I didn't want 3 sections. This probably works a bit better when it takes up a little more screen. So I'd want it to expand into here. But just to show you that you can add it under another section in the same tab as something else. It doesn't have to be on its own tab. I can open up, this case here. See the details. I can go into activities. See a quick snapshot. Okay, there's a task, an appointment. These are open. Again, you can edit the views if you'd like, just to show, or sorry, to either remove or add in the columns that you need to display on this view. I can add an additional task. So anytime you see these 3 dots, the ellipses, you'll always have more commands available to you. This is the case in all versions, whether it's here in a subgrid or here at the top of the form here. Those 3 dots give you more menu options. So because I have an activity grid, I can add an activity right from here. So similar to what we did before, I could open up a task, add it in, save and close, and it would display here. So I currently only have the case open. I could navigate to another tab here if I needed to. Could go back to summary, scroll down to that reference panel, and it's still open. If I navigate away, so let's say I'm going to go into another contact, we'll go to the next contact. We can see it's loading the reference panels here too in that form. And then I said, oops, you know what? I wasn't done with Doug. I'm going to go back here. Just take note that in that reference panel, the record that I did have open, so that case, is no longer open. So just to show you that when you do navigate away from the record, this does refresh. I want to thank you for attending today. Very quick, easy Thursday webinar. Hopefully it gives you a better idea of what Unified Interface is, what it looks like, some of the capabilities. Now, you could get into many hours of a webinar going over Unified Interface. but basically understand that it is the way that Microsoft is going. It will be the new navigation, the new interface for CRMs going forward. Again, it's available version 9 and then up. So if you have CRM 9 or you're going to be getting Dynamics 365 brand new, this will be automatically enabled. So it is what clients are getting right out of the box for version 9 and up. Please, if you have any questions, put them into the question box here, or sorry, in your questions box. I'll have a quick look at them, and then hopefully we'll be on your way.
Thanks, Ange. There are some really good questions that we're going to discuss in a few minutes. Again, if there are additional questions, please begin to type them, and then we'll go through them at the end. I will also be emailing out the recorded version of today's webcast. So just in case you know someone who is not able to attend today, please be sure to pass that along for us. So we'll go through a couple of questions. Let's see. How many tabs are allowed in Unified Interface?
Okay, so how many tabs? I assume just like within the forms themselves. I don't know if there's an exact number. We could double check on that. It won't have changed from your usual forms. So because when you're customizing, you're using the classic edit, form editing, it would be the same restrictions there. That may change in the future. I'm unsure at this time, but it's a good question.
Okay. Does Unified Interface support composite or flyout field like full name or address?
Good question. So the composite address fields, initially it was not supporting that yet. I don't know if that's been released. So that has been in the works because it was something that was not supported. And for anyone, that composite address, that's when it pops out and you're able to put in street 123, city, postal code, so forth. I'm not sure if that has been released yet, but it is on Microsoft's release plan.
Can we access document management from Unified Interface?
Document management, would this be like SharePoint if you're managing managing documents that way? I believe so. You can still use the same functionalities like your knowledge base articles and other documents as you would in your regular 365 or CRM. There are some restrictions, especially with some of those being read-only, so you may not be able to do the same edits or adds. That might still have to be done within the classic web version. So understand that at this time, it is a hybrid experience, as you saw just with some of the stuff I was doing. You have, those core functionalities of self-service available in Unified Interface, but a lot of the back-end things, a lot of the more technical pieces, and those other add-ons aren't quite there yet. They will be eventually as Microsoft moves everything to the new Unified Interface, but there are some limitations. So we'll include a link with that just so you can where to go to see those resources of what's coming, what currently isn't supported in Unified Interface, and then the release plan from Microsoft, because it's all in the works.
Thanks. Does Unified Interface support quick view control?
Quick view control. So I assume this is like when you add the quick views to a form, it will act the same.
So as of now, the setting area can be accessed through advanced setting. Is this a temporary solution by Microsoft, and soon will it be ported into Unified Interface?
Okay, so when I went in to do some customizations, I did go to that gearbox and went to the advanced settings. That brought me right into that settings area that most admins are familiar with. Going forward, though, there's actually the Power Platform and the whole concept of Power Apps. That's basically where this is moving to. So I can't say for sure what the exact path will be to get to those settings areas in the future. I don't think that will change much, but just so you know, if you are looking for more information, the Power Platform and Power Apps is where solution customization, managing instances, it is moving. So we didn't show that today just because it's not quite there yet. Not everyone is on that, but it will be coming in future webinars because there is a different place that people will go to create new solutions, to customize their apps and so forth. So there's actually a bit more than just that advanced settings navigation I showed you.
So we have just 2 more. Can we enable editable subgrid within reference control? I don't know if I'm asking that right.
I assume they mean editable grids within that reference panel. I don't think at this time you can do that. You may or may not have noticed when I opened up the records, they were read only. So they almost acted like a quick view. I couldn't edit them from there. And I don't think editable grids within the reference panels are available. Maybe in the future, I'm not sure.
Okay, so the last one. When migrating Web Classic contact form, does it overwrite the unified interface, or how does it work when having a migration?
Okay, let me just have a quick look so I understand that question. So if you're migrating forms, there's no unified interface versus classic web form. So you're not changing one to the other. What happens is you actually are enabling unified interface on your app specifically. So most people are just used to having Dynamics 365 and you have your sales service modules, let's say. You can now have a sales app and a customer service app. The customizations you do can be available on the web version as well as unified interface. So until the web version is completely gone and Microsoft's no longer supporting it, you'll have that hybrid experience, except for new customers signing on to 365, you'll get unified interface right away. But for those that already have it, there's no migration necessarily. You can enable it, but you can still have access to the classic web version. Same customizations, it's using the same form. Just from the demo today, you notice it just displays differently. That's a high level way to put it.
Okay, so thanks, Ange. That ends our Q&A. Again, if you would like additional information or would like to set up a demo to see the product again, please feel free to contact sales, and we have the information up on the screen. I would like to thank you all again for taking the time to attend our presentation today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.